Welcome into the ArtGibbs Sports Business podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, we've all heard about the Broncos purchase, the $4.65 billion purchase. And if you haven't, there's some previous episodes on that very subject. But now we're going to look at the most expensive sports franchise purchase, which is the Chelsea Football Club, which was purchased for over $5 billion. Now, that's actually not totally accurate or totally comparable to the Broncos purchase. That's kind of a high headline number, and we'll get into why that is here in this episode, as well as tell a little bit about the purchase itself. All right, so the Chelsea Football Club. So early in May of this year, it was reported that Todd Boehly led a group that had signed a deal to purchase the Chelsea Football Club. Boehly, who is the head of Eldridge Industries, a holding company that owns insurance companies, as well as various real estate holdings. He's also the chairman of MRC, which has a lot of media investments. Also of note, he is a 20% owner in the Los Angeles Dodgers, of course, doing that deal with Magic Johnson as part of the group. In 2019, Boehly had initially attempted to actually purchase the Chelsea Football Club. In 2019, he put forth a $3 billion offer to purchase the franchise. But that was rebuffed by the Russian billionaire owner of Chelsea, Roman Abramovich. He rejected the offer. But then a few years later, with the situation in Ukraine and the Russian war, the UK government was putting pressure on these Russian billionaires to divest their assets. So Roman Abramovich, seeing the situation, seeing that he was most likely going to have to sell the club, went ahead and put it up for sale and announced that he would donate any proceeds from it to charities that would help the Ukrainian people. So Todd Boehly came around again, put together this $5.2 billion offer, the largest ever paid for a sports franchise, and got the team. Couple things, though. So according to CNN, the $3 billion of the purchase price would go into a frozen bank account that belonged to Roman Abramovich, and the money would then be released to charities of his choosing, but the UK government would have to sign off on those transfers out of the account. You'll notice I said $3 billion, not $5.2 billion. So a couple of points here. The $3.08 billion was what was going to go to actually purchase the stock of the franchise, i.e. what would go to that former owner's bank account. The rest of the money, the $2.1 billion extra, was a commitment for future investments and improvements in the club, new facilities, youth programs, women's teams, etc. So it was actually a commitment of $5.2 billion, but only $3 billion to purchase the actual franchise itself, and the other was a commitment over time, over a couple of years, to invest more money into the football franchise. And then another big difference, as mentioned in a previous podcast, is that the NFL does not allow private equity money to purchase, to be involved in the purchase of an NFL team. That's got to be private capital, personal capital. Whereas the Chelsea purchase, we know, was at least partially funded by private equity money. And notably, it was by the private equity fund Clear Lake Capital whose founders were involved in the bidding process for the Broncos and were actually finalists in that bidding process. And of course, if private equity money was involved in the NFL, that could drive up the purchase prices more potentially. And then, additionally, the actual purchase of the stock was only $3 billion versus the $4.65 billion in the Broncos purchase. But nevertheless, it's a lot of money. And Abramovich purchased the club in 2003 for $185 million. So that's a huge return for him or for the charity beneficiaries that he will send the money to. So, all right, well, that's all we have today, and we will see you next time. Thank you.